I'm here with Billy Steele. Billy is a member of the iconic Steele family singers who have performed with Prince, George Clinton, Mavis Staples, Johnny Lang, and many others. He's also an assistant director of the Grammy winning Sounds of Blackness and the current musical director at the Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church in Minneapolis. Billy,
So
welcome and thanks so much for chatting with me.
good to be here, Ben. It's good to see you again,
It's
man.
good to see you again. I know it's been quite a long time since that production we did with Susanna De Palma, which was
Yeah,
super
man.
fun.
Super fun. There's so much for so many amazing musicians and dancers.
Yeah, this was a production that blended a lot of different elements. You know, gospel music, flamenco music, and singing, and dance, of course. So it was really I'd never done anything like that, so it was really a treat.
I clearly have never done anything like that either. I think I was so amazed. I'm always amazed when I have opportunities to work with different creative concepts. And Susanna, first of all, is amazing. And to actually work with her, she was an amazing dancer. She's been all of her life. And then the fact that to get to work with so many musicians in a different area that I'm not usually used to. I mean, usually I do the whole gospel R&B inspirational type of thing that I do. It really took me in a different area just to even hear it from rehearsal to watch you play and to hear some of the other musicians sing and do what they do just blew me away, for that opportunity.
And was that a way that you work frequently, where you kind of develop material as you go through improvising?
No, that's different. I've done that a few times. JD, my brother JD, and I have worked with Rita Mustafi and the Katha dancers, and we even got a chance to go to India to do performances. And that's a completely different culture, but it's actually very similar. I didn't realize that flamenco is part of Indian gypsies who crossed over to Spain. I think is what Susanna was telling me. So to learn that information was amazing because the difference to me was the guitar and the rhythm of tablas and stuff like that, as far as how they dance. And I was just blown away. And then tals and all that stuff. So it's not something I normally do, but in those two instances, I was able to participate in something like that, which really is challenging for me because again, learning the culture, I didn't know the music like that or anything, and I still am not a flamenco musician or one from a musician like that Kafa dancers would necessarily be with, but both Rita and Susanna found a way to work me and JD in to bring our gospel R&B type flavor to that, which made it really, really uniquely different.
I felt very much the same way. It was my first opportunity I've had to get to work with you and with Tanya Hughes and a few of the other flamenco musicians. But it was really felt like I just opened my eyes to a lot of different approaches to collaborating. And now that I remember you telling me about the project with Rita. When was that?
Oh, that was about 3 years, almost 3 years ago. I think we went to India. In
Hmm.
fact, we worked on another piece that we've already, put something together, and we're going to be finishing that soon. And hopefully, they'll get to present that at a world dance thing or something they're going to do. So, I mean,
Awesome.
it's a great opportunity. I think the thing for me is that as a musician, I love music just in general. I love all kinds of music. I didn't realize how much I love all kinds of music until I started working with Gerald and with Prairie Home Companion. And, it's a lot of more bluegrass, folksy kind of music. And, the shoe band, Rich Dworsky and all that, just phenomenal musicians. But it's similar to some of the older style gospel that I've played in years, but it's not that. And they're so good at it. So it made me started rethinking like how I'm listening to music. So when I did the kata dancing with Rita Mustafi, and then I did the flamenco thing, it just showed me, I was like, man, the world is full of cultural experiences. And the fact that even with Sounds of Blackness, to be able to travel across the world, Japan, we were going to Japan every year for tours, for like a month. And all over Europe, you start realizing that music, as Stevie Wonder says, a universal language. And in that language, there's so much to learn. So I started just kind of listening to music from a different perspective. I was like, man, it's something that actually connects us all if we listen to it. You get what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a spiritual experience to actually be able to hear all of these different forms of music, and actually, I don't even have to participate in it just to hear it, because then I started going to like Electric Fetus, which is our spot where you can find almost anything, and you start pulling CDs and stuff and listening. I'm going, man, this is amazing music, period. And all of you all out there who are musicians, I would call for you all to strengthen your palate, a little bit more when it comes to music. Try some other things, listen to some other music, and I think it will also improve on our writing ability, and even how we say what we say, to not just be so one track in what we're trying to say. I mean, we might all be talking about love, but culturally, um, we don't want to be offensive or anything like that. So it's like when you're writing about something, you can be as creative as you want to be, but stretch your palette, make it something, make the experience great for everybody. Show them that you're not just a baby on milk in your little block in your little town, but expand your palette more so that people can experience your true creativity.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Who are some of the people on your playlist like in the past few months?
Well, right now, man, I've been trying to get off this James Taylor. James Taylor released a new project that has a lot of standards on it. And somebody like me growing up in our black neighborhoods, there was always people who could sing, and they were phenomenal singers. So sometimes when you listen to singers, they don't always come across that they're great singers. Bob Dylan is one who I used to always, when I would hear like some of his old pieces, I was like, it's hard to listen to Bob Dylan. It's like his voice always sounded like he was drunk or something was going on with him to me, but he had such passion in his voice. I couldn't hear that as a younger musician. I can hear it better now. And James Taylor has a lot of soul in whatever he presents. I don't care what song it is. And he doesn't need anything. He don't need a microphone or a band. And he can sit with a guitar and just sing, and you're like, I get it. Um, a lot of times music, as a language, talks to us. What the music is saying to us is important. How the person is delivering, just like you and I having a conversation now. In our conversations, there are commas, periods, exclamation points, question marks. And I think when a singer thinks that they need to have all exclamation points behind it, sometimes they miss the message. So for me, when I'm listening to James Taylor, I realize he's giving me a conversation. Whatever the song is trying to say, they're trying to administer or minister the song to me so that I actually get what they're trying to say. So he can talk about an old cabin somewhere in the forest, but I actually get the experience he's talking about of how he's seeing it. So I'm saying, so right now I'm kind of, that's something I'm just listening to. It's weird because it's just so relaxing to me. It just
Mm.
changes, and because we do music at the fellowship every week, so I have to learn that music, and I have to constantly do, certain things that I do. So sometimes just to get away and kind of a respite, I listen to something completely different. So it's been that, and then Joe Sample, he's the late Joe Sample, was one of my favorite jazz musicians, and he did a lot of melodies. Just when he played, everything was about melodies with Joe Sample. So I'll listen to him, some of his old, I think it was his old Carmel. I
Mm.
think that record, I can't remember if that was the name of the record, but I can let that record, the whole record just play. And it just, man, it puts me in a good place, especially on these, at night when that cool breeze comes after that hot summer day. Roll back to Sunland and just ride for about an hour. And man, it's perfect.
I feel like that's a yeah. I've been on the Spotify kick late at night because it's so much healthier than like scrolling through the news on your phone
Right. Yeah.
endlessly and just being filled with
Inundated
anxiety.
with that.
Just put
Yeah.
on an artist that I've never heard before on Spotify, and then like wait, I'll wake up halfway through and be like, who? I don't even know who this person is. Like an old
Right.
oud music from Syria or something, and I'm like, how did I get here?
Right. Exactly. That's crazy.
Um, So at Fellowship, are you leading any rehearsals in person at the moment, or is it all, through video, or how does
So
that
we
work?
we we only do an online service. We actually don't have service on Sundays like we usually do. So we tape usually on Thursday evenings, or at least some weekday evening we'll tape. So what I do is I'll bring in a portion of choir, and we socially distance them in the sanctuary, and we mic them in the sanctuary, and I'll run over the songs with them before we record, and then we'll do that. So I try to do songs that's something that's a little bit more familiar to our playlist of songs that we've been doing, for the last couple of years or so, and try to pick something out of that so it's, relatively familiar, and that's how we do it.
And so do you have to do a lot of arranging every week, um, for all
Uh,
the new material that you learn, or?
well, what we do, we just kind of go over it. I make sure the musicians have it. Musicians show up about an hour early, and we run over it, just music wise, and get a sound check with our sound guy for the online service. And then I run over the music with the choir for an hour, and then we record the service. You know, and that's how we do. It's really it's a simple way to do it. It's been a blessing to the church to still connect the family, that way, and it's been a blessing to those of us who still get to come and see each other. I think in this pandemic, one of the things that I realize is that we're starting to realize more and more how much we need each other and to touch each other. Like that's a big deal. So even though we can't like just hug everybody, everybody comes in with their mask on and everything, and then when we sing, we take them off, but we are all distant, and then we put them back on to leave out and stuff. But you can tell everybody's like, man, it's just good to see everybody. It's a warmth that you miss. I think the church and probably mosques and synagogues across this world are starting to realize something that God said in Scripture in the Bible. Um, well, Jesus said, excuse me, in the Scripture in the Bible, Jesus said to his disciples, "Which of these two are the greater?" um, commandments. And Jesus said, if you love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and body, and then love each other. So it's like we need God and we need each other like more than anything. And those two, if we can get those two right, it will be a much better world. Because if you love God, the ultimate love, the Bible said God is love and love is God, then you'll love yourself. It'd be hard for you to actually love your neighbor as yourself if you don't love yourself. And that I see that actually. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think when the church comes together for even that little small moment, it shows how much we need each other. We could all say we believe in God and and read the Bible and all that, but we still need the contact of each other. The Bible says it's not good for man to be alone. We need each other. We don't need to be isolated. Social distance is actually not a good thing.
Right. That's what I was hearing, is that they're kind of advocating for changing the language to physical distancing, so that
Right,
make sure that
exactly,
we're all still connecting, more than
exactly.
ever
But
right
even
now.
physical distance,
Mm-hmm.
I understand, and it is a necessity because we're trying to save lives. But it's not a good thing.
Right.
I mean, this what we're in right now. First of all, you and I have never experienced this, of course, because we didn't grow up in the 1918 for Spanish flu. But what we are experiencing, and I'm sure you recognize it too, is something that's so different, and it affects not a few people, but it affects the whole world. It's not just a community. You know how you look at the news and it always seem like they are experiencing this. They are going through great tragedy. They are
Mm-hmm.
going through great need. No, we are experiencing great tragedy. We are going through this particular situation together, but we can't actually be together. And then having certain politics in place that is the divisive is not helpful either, because this is not a uh, Democratic, Republican, Independent, libertarian situation. This is a world issue,
Right.
and we all need to be on the same page, but we can't because politicians want to make sure that's not the case.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's exactly right. Like you said, it's like it's happening around the world all at the same time, and it's it's not an issue that's somewhere over there in the abstract. It's like
Exactly.
it's here just as it is on the other side of the globe.
Exactly.
And
But you know, to get back to music, I think the music is something that can kind of help bring us together, and that's something I've noticed. You know, there's been a lot of these virtual things and stuff been fun to watch, and what I'm starting to really love now is that musicians are like in small, in their houses connecting, or they're in bigger venues like where they kind of can socially distance, but they play in the same place, and they're
mm-hmm.
coming up with great music, man. And you know, Minnesota has some phenomenal musician, you know, like Brian Zimniak. I've seen him post a few things that were really cool, even with his own kids, you know. It's just been really cool to see. Music is not going to be stopped by this pandemic, by no
Right.
means. New projects are constantly dropping. People's like, hey, I might not be selling and doing concerts right now, but they're even trying to do virtual concerts now. But even in the midst of that, some people are just like sharing and sharing music with people for free. You can go online and see stuff you would never have seen before. You know what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
that's priceless, man. I'm like, if you're gonna spend time on social media, then fill it with something that's gonna be beautiful like that. Because I'm telling you, man, I've enjoyed some of these music. I mean, these kids even, man, who are at home shedding on bass and guitar. I'm just like, I share some of that stuff. I'm like, man, this is ridiculous.
I was gonna say, I know you posted a little kid who was just
Yeah,
you know, a monster on the electric bass recently, and I was
yeah.
like, oh my goodness.
I know exactly. It's sometimes people say, "Are you a musician?" I say, "Yeah, I don't even know anymore now. These kids are geniuses now." You know,
Hmm.
the
So,
world.
what were
Go ahead,
you?
go ahead.
Were you that age? Were you that young when you first started singing?
You know, my family all sang. All the Steels, we all grew up in a household of singing. We had uncles and aunts who sang. My dad sang and played guitar. Um, but I didn't really like that whole music thing at first. I like bugs and weather. I was a weird kid growing up, you know, that kind of thing, but kind of geeky. But what happened is in junior high school, I remember Miss Vincent was my music teacher, and she was kind of pushing me a little bit. So I sang with this girl on a duet. I think it was a Denise Williams and Johnny Mathis song. And I can't remember what the song was called, but anyways, we sang it together, and it was interesting how the girls responded to me after I sang that song with her. You know, I was like, oh, I'm not an athlete, so I'm like, I didn't realize I can get girls' attention with this. So it's like that changed my life. you know, as a little boy in junior high school, there's all of a sudden being recognized by all these girls, like, oh, you sing so good, it's just a boy thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was about, I would say probably about 14, 13 or 14 before I discovered that my ear was making me, or allowing me to actually hear what I want to play. And it was like I was connecting those two together. It was like, because I mean, singing, I was doing what the teacher said, but when I sat at an old piano in my basement that's been there for years, I started picking out stuff, and I was going, hey, that actually sounds kind of cool. And even my mom noticed it. So then at church, I remember a friend of mine, Dennis Ross, and I went and sat at the organ together to play for service because our musician didn't come that Sunday. And we were in the key of G, and we came up with something that just kind of worked with a lot of the songs. Because in the Pentecostal church I grew up in, you sang one song, they all kind of sounded alike. So if you could kind of lock into this, you could kind of play like a whole set of songs. And the only problem was when we were sitting there, somebody changed the key and went to something that we just didn't know. We had to kind of sit and look because, like, yeah, we don't know that. You can get back to G, we might can help. So we did that one Sunday, but for me, it opened up a whole new world. I was just like, man, this is amazing. So I said, I think it's time for me to try to take this a little more serious. Let me get involved in it more and see what I can do. So I talked to musicians who I grew up with, and they said, man, whatever you learn it in every key. And I said, okay, I'll learn it in every key then. And that's what I did. I started learning in every key, and then I started trying to play pieces. There's a gospel group here called James Greer and Company. It was the first group I ever played for, gospel group. Like that had it was a real group. You know what I'm saying? I had a group of guys back in the day that we played together too, but I had another guy playing for us. But I played for this group, and it's called James Gary and True Holiness Singers out of Chicago, out of Gary, Indiana, and that opened me up to kind of see, what to do more to learn music, to sit down and really hash out and see if I can learn the right chords. You know how you're learning somebody else's songs? Like, can I learn the right chords? It's, not just my idea of the song.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of musicians, we get lazy. It's like, I don't know what that chord is, so I'm just gonna play this one, keep moving. So that opened me up to actually hear a lot more gospel groups, a lot more musicians in Chicago, and from there on, I kind of just exploded, starting to listen to a ton of music, and trying to learn everything I could about it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, about 14 years old. That's when it kind of branched off from.
Gotcha. So you came out with a solo EP recently that's just solo Hammond organ, no vocals,
Yeah.
just really stark and very powerful. I think
So
it was about
a friend of
April.
mine, yeah, my friend of mine named Christopher First. He owns Studio 65 in Ham Lake. He did a project with Darnell Davis. Darnell Davis is a phenomenal musician here, has a great gospel group. And he sat down and played. And I told him, I said, man, that was really cool. I enjoyed that because I was working on something else with him with Sarah Renner's project, I think it was. And I told him, I said, man, I love that. He said, man, you ought to come out and play. I said, really? He said, yeah, man. He said, man, I'll do it. I'll record. Just come on out. And I was like, okay. So what that was is me coming out to the studio, sitting at the organ, and him just basically recording what I was sitting there doing. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of stuff that organ players do when I was growing up is they kind of doodle. They kind of just kind of fool around and set an ambience for the experience for church.
Mm-hmm.
Or and I think I added a couple of hymns and stuff like that in our old church songs, just for fun. And I had a blast. I loved doing it. But he said, yeah, we can put it out. So I put it out. And then after that, I actually did a two-piece project after that. There's a song called Whisper His Name by Jonathan Stockstill that I did. And I sang it with St. Andrew's Lutheran Church in Matamidi with Sarah Renner's contemporary church band. And when we recorded it, I was just a guest for that service for that song, and it was just a blessing doing it. And if the song had a connection to something as a testimony in my life, going through some family issue with my son, my youngest son at the time, and that song kind of gave me peace. So when I sing it, it always has a heart pull for me, you know. So I shared it, and it was one of those songs where after a while, everybody was like, "This song really touched me and moved me," that kind of thing. So I was like, "Well, that's cool." So then the National Day of Prayer people heard it and decided, "Hey, can we use it for our National Day of Prayer locally?" Bob Baki, I think is his name. And I said, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I checked with St. Andrews. And they said, yeah, cool. So then National Day of Prayer nationwide heard it and wanted it. And they used it for the whole national televised, like 4 networks and all that stuff. And I said, well, I want to think maybe I should go ahead and get the copyright on it and release it like a single. So I did that. And then after that, they did a National Day of Prayer worldwide, and they also used it. So I said, well, I'll go ahead and put that out then. So I did that, and then I did a jazz arrangement of it as well. And I had people like Kitty Holman, saxophonist, and let me see, Jonathan Bakure from Ethiopia, the bass player. And I had, let me see who else played on that. Oh, Spencer Christensen, Spencer Bradley Christensen, guitar player. He played. I actually added Jaden Sorensen. He lives in Atlanta now, a young guy, plays guitar as well. And Big L, Larry Robinson played drums, and I played keys and everything. And remember, I had a blast putting it together, and that's actually available, now still digitally. So if anybody wants it, and the video, you can always watch the video. It don't cost nothing
Hmm.
on YouTube. I have my own YouTube channel as well. You can subscribe to.
Yeah, both of those are amazing, and I didn't realize that um, Whisperer's Name was a live recording, unless I misunderstood, and some parts were recorded after the fact.
Well, no. So, because of the pandemic, St. Andrews also was doing like Tanya Hughes Kendrick, Tanya, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Tanya and Sarah did their recordings in their homes, and the musician all did their recordings in their homes. And I did my recording at a studio with the
I
guy who
see.
does the sound at the church now, Carl Deemer, who owns Atomic K Studios. He recorded that for me. He did the little video for me too. So I was like,
Gotcha.
cool. I just do that because I was working on something else. So I said, if I could do that, that'd be great, with him. And I just did that and sent that to them so they could add it to it. So it
Mm,
wasn't done live in any particular place. It was one of those virtual things
gotcha.
or
What it,
previous.
what, yeah, I was listening to it, and it's like an amazing. I mean, just kind of as far as the texture of it too, an amazing kind of journey for your voice, where it starts out and it's very sparse, just
Yeah,
piano and soft humming, and then it gets really big, and then at
right.
the end there's organ, and you doing
Pipe
this.
organ. I know
Yeah,
Bill
wow.
Sennard, man. Bill Sennard is now he's another one. Working in St. Andrews with Sarah Renner and them guys over there. Bill Sennard. Actually, when remember Rupert? Rupert used to be, I think the Metropolitan used to be called Rupert's years ago when it
Mm,
first opened. And they had what they call Rupert's Orchestra. My sisters used to work with them, and Bill played bass, upright bass, with the orchestra back in that day and stuff. And I didn't know Bill played organ. So when I reconnected with him at St. Andrews, I was like, oh, you playing pipe organ? Man, I sat behind Bill in the service one time listening to him play. I'm just in awe, man. That guy he's ridiculous. His voicings of what he chooses to play. Now he's reading the hymn, but he's not playing it straight. He chooses other voicings and chordings. And man, it just melts your heart, man, how beautiful these voices he chooses and stuff, man. I mean, he is a master on pipe work. And he's still ridiculous on bass,
wow.
upright or electric, don't even matter. I mean, he's just one of his whole family is gifted. Dan is a ridiculous keyboard player. I mean, these guys are just phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a I don't even understand just the mechanics of the pipe organ. Like every limb is doing a different part.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. After
and
playing Hammond organ, I was like, look, I use one foot to move my pedals and one just to keep the volume, up or down. He's using both feet, but they're doing a bunch of stuff. It's like three people under there and stuff moving around. I was like, man, what is going on?
and the stops and everything. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's crazy. But I can appreciate again, just like it is with you. I mean, when I watch you play, the first time I was watching you play, because we were roommates on the road in Florida, and I remember you were sitting there playing. I was sitting there going, "Man, how are you doing that?" Because
Oh,
it's like, man, those
appreciate
chords
that.
were so phenomenal, and just how quick you were. I was like, man, I feel like they're hidden gems in this city that I've never seen because of music, the differences of music, and we don't venture out like that. So, man, it's
Right.
you even opened my eyes and stuff. I was like, man, Ben's a beast. Me and Tanya were talking about it because she and I grew up in the same kind of with the worship experience, church together, and all that whole thing. So then to connect with you and just watch that happen, we was like, man, Ben is. We would say this constantly to ourselves. Ben is a beast. And you remember, I kept saying, you doing a project, man, you need to get that out because I bought it. Monolithic with that rat on the cover, which I don't know why that rat's there, but but
Oh
the
no, I
music is
really that
amazing.
means yeah, that means just a lot to me, and
Yeah,
that was kind of some of the inspiration for getting my own record out there. So I really appreciate that.
yeah, man, you're ridiculous. Ain't
Mm.
no doubt about it. Anybody want to ask me a question about it, I'll tell them. Anybody, I'll write it out. I'll write a whole essay about it.
That means a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was cool. Again, the project we were talking about with Susanna, the flamenco dancer and choreographer. That like, I almost found it strange that I had much more experience with flamenco. This tradition from Spain than I
right,
did with American gospel music and black gospel music.
right,
Like there was definitely I was familiar with some of the harmonic spaces, with chord changes and everything, but just the singing was just something that continues to blow me away.
Yeah, man, Tanya's a beast. Good Lord.
Oh,
I mean, and that's in every area I've ever heard her. She figures out how to use her gift to fit in whatever genre it is, and every time people are blown away. And I'm always amazed. I can't wait to see people's responses when we get done with something and she goes out and actually performs. Because remember when we did all the music, we were like in rehearsal, sitting there going, wow, you know, that was just us. And it was like we couldn't wait to get to a certain song in the event just so we see what's gonna happen. Because it's like,
mm-hmm.
man, that's gonna be a moment. You know, even Susanna would say, oh yeah, that's gonna be. I was like, yeah. And even like the dancers and everybody who hadn't heard her yet. Then we came to first rehearsal and she sang and they were looking, they were like, oh my God. They were like goosebumps and tears. And I was like, yeah, that's Tanya Hughes Kendrick. That's who she is.
Mm-hmm.
A phenomenal, phenomenal gift.
I was talking to her this week because we
Mm-hmm.
were doing one of these too, and I was saying like, yeah, I remember when a lot of the guest flamenco artists came in and they come from this whole other world
Yeah,
of very powerful singing,
yeah.
and they were like, whoa,
Exactly.
watching
Wow.
her.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Jose was amazing. Now I follow him like on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
He posts a lot of stuff. I mean, he'll have dinner and he'll start dancing, singing, playing guitar, whatever. And I'm just like, man, this guy he is a walking piece of music. It's like he does it any and everywhere. But he
Mm-hmm.
shares some really nice pieces, man, of some performances he's done. I mean, he's a great singer. I really enjoyed him, but I remember his response when he first heard Tanya. He was just like, I don't know what he said. I didn't understand the language. I just know before he said it, he preferenced it with a oh. And I was like, so I knew that was yeah, he was killing it. She was killing it, man.
Yeah. It was beautiful. Yeah, and like there was a moment in the show I remember where it was very much, like sometimes there are projects that fuse different approaches or musical cultures, and it can be hit or miss. But this was, totally nailing it as far as like, you know, gospel singing and then a very traditional flamenco piece happening at the
Right,
same time,
right.
and in two
Exactly.
different languages simultaneously. So that was really cool.
Completely
Mm-hmm.
agree. And that was the fun of it to me. I mean, sometimes I would just sit and listen to figure out what I'm gonna play with or something like that. And I sit there and go, oh God, I don't want to mess this up. you know, because it would be so cool and so beautiful. I was like, yeah, I just don't want to mess. I just want to hear more of it. You know, I think that sometimes that was my thing of trying to figure out how to do an underbedding or a underscoring of some particular part of what we were doing to hear you more because something you played or something made me feel like, yeah, that says it. You know, so I think that was part of the process too, just listening to how that music trying to fit. Sometimes it fits, sometimes it didn't, and we just try to make it the best out of it at that moment, and then try to be creative and say, okay, now we did this. This would be great. Take the piano out and just let her sing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Or let me
Mm-hmm.
chord with you. I was like, that works. And I was like, cool. Make it more sparse. And so I mean that was part of the creative process, but it did come together beautifully. I wish we could do it like a whole bunch of shows and a whole big tour, which I know that was part of the plan before the
Right.
pandemic kind of
After
changed
all of this, yeah.
everything. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was even thinking, and I was talking to Tanya about this too, where something that kind of opened my eyes during that process was, you and her sitting down and the amount of effort that goes into making sure that a set of lyrics, like you can sing them properly and that the phrasing is natural. Like
Yeah,
that doesn't happen by accident. There's a lot of work that goes into that.
it does because you can always say stuff, but my brother JD and I talk about this often because sometimes he'll write something and it seems like that's the line. It's like it does, but it feels forced. So it's like I don't want to force a line. When Paul McCartney, he's one of my favorite, old school writers back in the day too, Beatles. He did when he did his Paul McCartney and Wings project. He did a song called "Somebody's Knocking at the Door." Remember that song? Somebody's knocking at the door. Somebody's ringing the bell. Do me a favor. Open the door, let him in. And I was like, it's not much to it, but the way he phrased it, you could have tried to force other lyrics in and change a little bit, and made it work. You could have changed that. You could have changed, somebody's knocking at the front door. Somebody, I mean, you could have done that, but
Mm-hmm.
that's forcing it creatively. And I think that's usually when songs hit, it's because they found a rhythm that actually the syncopation of it or rather makes it sing better. So that when people hear, because most people are not musicians who are listening to our music, they're common ear. They don't hear half the stuff we think. Thank God, because it would drive them crazy. Because I mean, that's why sometimes people play or over sing, and you know, and next thing you know, you're like, God, when is this gonna end? Because it's just too much. You guys are going overboard. But that's sometimes when you let the cat out of the bag of being as creative as you can in that moment. And a lot of times it's the simplicity of whatever it is you're trying to say, and not all of that, not all of the melisma and and stuff that you're trying to add at that moment. It's like, don't do that. Just take it easy, man, and give them what you're trying to say. Because while you're trying to kill it and think that you're really sounding amazing, half the people are not even listening to anything you said. They're just trying to understand your acrobatics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's not so much about how great you are as a musician playing and singing. It's about what are you trying to say? Because most of the people are just trying to hear what you're trying to say. It's not musicians want to hear what you do.
Right.
you know,
Right. And how you
but
get
even
there.
even
Yeah.
yeah, even in that situation, there's never somebody I don't think is better than me. I think everybody better than me. So I'm saying that a lot of times musicians who understand it better realize it's like, yeah, you could practice and practice and be really good at it and still might not get a phone call. Maybe your character won't allow you to stay in the door that you opened. You know what I'm saying? Your
Mm-hmm.
integrity. So it's still a lot more to this than just playing or singing.
Right. And that brings up a good point too, as far as delivering lyrics. Like, like you said, most of your audiences will be there to understand what you're trying to say, and if it doesn't, if you don't connect with them in that certain way, then it sounds like maybe that's a little bit more important than the melismas that you executed, or
Right.
you know the chops that you displayed.
But that's about, the choosing, the choice. A singer can decide, you know what, I'm going to give it all on this one moment. And for some reason in their head, they forgot they have 8 more songs to do in this concert. And I'm like, I can't take another 7 songs of all of that because I thought you did everything. I remember I had a guest here one time. I used to do these late night musicals, New Year's Eve. Church would be packed, big church over in North Minneapolis, first Church of God in Christ. And I brought in this lady who could really sing. But there was another lady who came in town who was visiting, and I didn't know who was here. And the pastor called and said, "She's here. Can she come over?" She's a blind lady. And now her name was Francine Jones, I think is her name. And uh, I put her up before my main artist. I was like, "Well, I'll have her sing a song," and she did every possible thing you can do in one song. She did so many things. To even I was sitting there in awe, like, wow. I mean, up, down, low, those riffs and runs and scats and hurdles and all kinds of stuff. So it was so funny because everybody was just like in awe of her. I can't remember what the song was even. It's kind of like Super Bowl commercials. You see a Super Bowl commercial, like they're selling something. I don't know what they're selling.
Right.
It's funny as I don't know what. You know what I'm saying? And I know they wanted me to laugh, but I laughed and then the commercial went off and I can't remember what they were selling. And that can send the wrong message if you're really trying to get something across to people to say, this is what I want to say. And
Right.
she got done, man. And I'm not saying she wasn't good. She was amazing. I just can't remember what she was saying. But then the lady who got up, my second guest, I remember she got up to the mic. It was so funny. She was like, "Well, you pretty much heard everything a singer can do." So I was like, yeah. So I felt bad because I was like, I kind of put her in an interesting predicament because that late at night, after that many things coming across a mic with one voice,
Mm-hmm.
unless she's got some pyrotechnics or something, her stuff is probably not going to match up to it. But I was like, it was only one song. This lady had to sing a few songs. So then she felt the challenge that
Mm-hmm.
she needed to do something else. And I was glad that she chose instead to just minister, to say what she needed to say, because that still is more effective. Because I mean, we can always be in turn. You can see dogs jump through hoops. That's great. But what does it say? They're
Mm-hmm.
trained well. you know.
Right.
But when you're trying to say something in a song, specifically when you're talking about from a religious perspective, we're talking about God who is the solution, or trying to encourage people, or whatever like that, or accept Jesus Christ. That is not a time to put on the performance. That's a time to administer what you're trying to say so that people can actually get it. Otherwise, it's kind of a waste of time. You could do that outside the church
Mm.
or in the parking lot and just see how people respond to it. Because they'll be like, ooh, ah, wow, did you see that? Man, that was cool. She did that standing on one leg. And you just kind of laugh because I was like, I don't know what she was singing, but boy, whatever it was, she was killing it.
Right. What the message was, I don't remember at
I
all, but
missed it. Yeah, I just remember
yeah.
it was a lot of acrobatics. It's not a knock against her. She's a phenomenal musician. It's just that I think we miss opportunities when there's tons of people watching. I've seen this with the Star Spangled Banner millions of times. People feel like they gotta kill it, and of course, now during this detention now, and everybody's having a better understanding about our flags and the Star Spangled Banner. Maybe it won't be so long now, but some of those, you hear the "Oh, say, can you see?" You be like, "Oh man," you got the player standing there, they're rocking side to side. He's like, "When is this gonna end?" Because whatever the message that anybody's trying to say is getting lost. And it should never be whatever it is you're trying to say. What are you saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
you need to get your language and just say it, and it'll be beautiful. And people will be like, "Oh, okay, I got it. I actually get what you're trying to say." And it could
Mm-hmm.
be simple, but you want people to get the simple message. You don't want it to be drowned out by Gary Clark riffs on guitar and stuff just because you can. It's like, I mean, yeah,
Right.
that's great, but don't forget to do. And believe it or not, that's pretty much in every area of life. I work with preachers and orators, and sometimes people feel like if they know big words. I heard an old theologian one time get up. He was talking to preachers. He was like, "Preachers, young preachers." He's like, "Don't get up trying to express how smart you are to people when you speak." He said, "I know big words." He said, "Hippopotamus, a gorilla." he said, he said, "That doesn't mean anything that you know these words." He said, if you could just say the, and get your point across that way and simplify it. Jesus spoke in parables to simplify what he was trying to teach. So he would deal with things about agriculture because agriculture was big. So he would simplify things about sowing seed, you know, watering, harvest. It was just basic understanding things that the people would get. I'm thinking singing or speaking or any other thing that we do, we simplify what we're trying to say and quit trying to be like we're so smart and we're so genius. Then we'll be better at it. You know?
Right. So it's like it goes for any walk of life or any activity that you might imagine. Whether
Exactly. You
it's
want the emotion and the soul and all that behind it, but you do not want a lot of antics and then you lose the message, whatever it is you're trying to say or do. It's like, man, that was great, but you know, sometimes one performance is all you get. And if you don't say it, then people kind of leave with, yes. I remember my wife one time, we went to see an amazing vocalist. She was one of these vocalists that I really, really wanted to see, right? It was Kim Burrell. You familiar with Kim Burrell?
mm,
Okay, if you get a chance to listen to her, first of all, she's a singer. This lady can riff, run, and oh my God, she's a musician too. She plays, so she hears all the chords before they get there. So she knows where to land, and her pitch is ridiculous. Her tone is amazing. And I went to go see her because I was like, babe, I want to go see her because she's going to be at town, this little church over South Minneapolis. I said, I'm going, let's go. Musicians that was with her, one of the musicians I knew, and he was a great organ player, David Allen Blakely. And then you had the Newell brothers playing bass and drums. I mean, they were really good. And Jonathan DuBose, I think, was playing guitar, and he's a known gospel guitar player. So I was like, I can't wait to get here to hear this. Man, my wife came in, and her and her best friend came, right? So we sitting there, man, and she's killing it. I mean, she's doing all kind of stuff, man. I'm just like, ooh, ah. And there's a bunch of other musicians there, and we looking at each other, like, man, you hear that? You know, like we bugging out. My wife comes over and in my ear. She said, hey, honey, me and my friend are gonna go to the store right quick. Did you want? What's like what? You're going to the store now? What? She's up there doing all this. She's like, I don't get it. My wife coming here, she don't hear all that stuff that I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So for her, she's just like, I'm not really sure I don't get what all this is. She wasn't moved by that. And I was like, okay, I get it now. And that was
Mm-hmm.
one of my best lessons I learned about common ear people, to those who are musicians, people who are already creative. It doesn't knock them as being creative and being amazing. It's just saying that everybody it's not palatable for everybody. You know, just some of us who are musicians will, you know, like me and you, if you hear her, you'll appreciate it right off the bat. You'll be like, oh my God, that's, you know, but then there are others who are like, yeah, I don't really know. Not really moved by that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they just want to be able to sing along and simple, simplistic things. It doesn't make them simple people. It's just that how they hear music, you know, that's not it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I very much connect to that as a guitar player because we're certainly guilty of that. It seems like a lot of the most successful guitarists in any genre are ones that are really able to imitate the human voice. Certainly the ones that I would prefer to listen to. But sometimes it's hard to remember that when you're like trying to create something clever or that you think is
Right.
has enough
Sarah
layers
Renner
of
and I,
texture or whatever.
Sarah Renner and I led worship at a church one time in Wisconsin, and we had this kid that came to play the drums, electrical set, right, and everything. And I just met him, and he got on the drums, and I think we were doing real simple contemporary Christian songs, probably 4 or 5 chords total in it, right? So I'm just kind of playing it straight, just kind of getting him, trying to get a feel. This one got on the drum, just started hitting everything. He's like, just, and I was sitting there like, hold on a second, wait a minute. I said, yeah, man, just kind of give me the groove. And it was like he'd start giving me the groove, and then he would always start doing some kind of thing, like he would just go off all of a sudden. I was like, look, I tell you what, when I point to you, you do something. I won't point to you. So of course he'd be looking like intently, like in a double Dutch moment, like he trying to jump in, you know. And I was like, not yet. And then it was like, of course, I didn't really want him to do any of it. So of course it was gonna be far in between, but I had to get him something. So I'd be like, he'd be, I was like, oh man. It's like, man, that kid was like, I was like, he had no clue. He just like, his girlfriend was there and things and stuff. He wanted to make sure she heard him. I was like, this is gonna be a long service. I think the service was not even really scheduled to be that long, but working with him made me really nervous.
It felt well. That's certainly one thing that I was digging and appreciating in your Hammond organ record, where it's just like the first song you set up this groove with with the foot pedals, which by the way you got to listen through headphones to really get the full spectrum.
Right.
But man, just how solid the groove is, and it's just you on one instrument.
Right. Right.
Just it's amazing.
Yeah, organ is an amazing instrument. I know when it was created, I think a lot of people wanted it to take place of a pipe organ. Mike could do it cheaper, and the Leslie was like the size of a car. It was huge, big turning thing, you know. But pipe organ players, particularly in Europe, was like, that's blasphemy. There's no way. That said that monster would never replace the pipe organ. So they were like, no way. And then other types of musicians started playing it. They was like, hey, this is actually a cool instrument. And they started using it for other genres of music and kind of just, you know, kind of opened up the way for the Hammond organ to have its own spot, got his
Mm-hmm.
own lane. And it's, I mean, what's his name? DiFrancesco.
Mm-hmm.
What's his first name? I can't.
Joey,
Joey,
Joey.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Joey DiFrancesco is like he's a beast, man. Yeah, Jimmy. There's so many players back in the day I remember listening to that, this stuff would come up and I was like, who is that, man? It was like, man, they were just so phenomenal. And it seemed like they were making an organ talk. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? And there's so many other guys. And then there were other guys who played the Hammond, where it was kind of fit pop music. It's basically just so you can get the spinning of that Leslie to cut through on your track. They
Mm-hmm.
made the track warmer, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that's good. Like Al Green, you listen to Al Green songs. The organ was an integral part of his sound. You know what I mean? Because it
Mm-hmm.
was such a unique sound with the Leslie and the animation of the Leslie turning and then stopping and turning slow. And it was like, man, that's how can you mend a broken heart? Songs like that. Al Green, it's like all of a sudden that organ slows down and you can hear in the back while he's talking the emotion of losing love for one another. Man, it's, yeah, that organ. It's kind of like the tambourine from the 60s. It's like a sound. It had its lane. It's like no
Mm-hmm.
matter what the funk all stars or whatever funk band from the 60s did all them 60 Motowns songs. And tambourine come in, it just sets the stage, man. You know,
Mm-hmm.
feel.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely post a link to both of your recent recordings in the video. And is there one place where people can go online to find your music, Billy?
Well, you can go to my music channel. You know what I'm saying? If you want to do that, just look up Billy Steele. You'll find it. It's not a problem. Otherwise, on all the digital platforms, on Amazon.com, iTunes. I did it through TuneCore, so you can always go there if you want to purchase or just listen and see what it sounds like. You know,
Awesome.
my thing is that any of this music, if you don't want to buy it nowadays, I mean, you could just listen to it. If you have Apple Music, just pull it up; it'll be there. But I mean, just give it a ear, give it an ear. If you would like to purchase. If not, that's okay too. But give it a moment just to hear it. It is definitely something that my heart is connected to. And this next piece, so I got another thing coming up. Can I talk about that now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so um, Larry Robinson and I worked on a song, "Don't Stop," in the midst of this pandemic and all the racial injustice stuff that we've been experiencing. A lot of people ask me, well, how are you doing, man? Or what do you think about all this? And in the middle of saying all these things, I was like, well, we have a song, but I still want to talk to my brothers across our communities, across this country and this world, even in London, like in Brixton area, whatever. Talk to my brother and say, look, man, if you're a father, be a father. You know what I'm saying? Your husband, be a husband. Your friend, your brother, whatever you are, like be the best at that, man. Keep moving forward because that's gonna make things better in your neighborhoods with our families because we still have to do that. Yeah, we can march for injustice. We can do what we have to do to social to physical distance when it comes to this pandemic. But at the end of the day, we still have to keep moving forward. There's still
Mm-hmm.
things that we want, there's things you want to do. You want to go to school, complete and graduate, go do it. You know what I'm saying? Go as far as you can do it. So it's called Don't Stop. And what I did is I asked some musician friends of mine, my nephew, Cortland Coco Jackson, a young man who's a phenomenal drummer. His name is Keenan Friday. He plays with Darnell Davis and the Remnant. And as good a drummer as he is, I didn't know he could sing like he does, but he's got a great voice. I asked them two to come in. I asked Lynn Jones from the R&B group M Fellas. I
Mm-hmm.
asked Jermaine Thomas to come in from this quartet group called the Revivals. He's one of the music ministers at Mount Olivet Baptist Church in St. Paul. And then I asked David Hurst, who's a phenomenal vocalist himself. He's the minister of music at High Praise, the Destiny Center Church in Minneapolis. And he's also, his family is called the Hurst Experience. his whole family sings. His wife, his daughter, and his son. They're all just ridiculous. So I called him in as well, and then me and Elle did the track and all the production and everything on it, and we called the group The Response. And the reason why I called them a group, I called Terry Lewis out in California and said, "Hey Terry, what should I do to put this song out?" He said, "Well, call them a group, make them a group." I said, "Cool." He said, "If it's a hit, it won't matter, whether they're committed to do it or whatever." I said, "Cool." So I let them know that they won't be, any particular commitment, but I want them all to sing and share. And we're going to actually be doing a video too, but it's called The Response. That's the name of the group, with a Z on the end instead of SE. And then the song is called Don't Stop. And that's a single, and it's going to come out August 3rd.
Cool.
And I'm really excited about it. It's got a really strong message. The groove is cool. He's a guy named Michael Burrell, who's, I think I shared with you some of his stuff. He's a keyboard player out of California. And I had him do some talk box on it. So it's got a real R&B inspirational flavor to it. It's upbeat. So that's what we just finished up, and that'll come out August 3rd. So we've kind of put a lot behind that right now.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
We'll definitely be looking for that.
yeah. Thanks, man.
That's
And then
super
the
cool.
family. My mom's been dealing with some health issues a little bit. She's been in the hospital for a little bit, but she's doing good. But the families, we're still focused. There's some things we still want to do. JD and I working on the next thing, like he's working on the Rita Mustafi stuff, because there's going to be that coming soon, hopefully. A lot of things we had planned, we kind of everything slowed down because everything got postponed or canceled. So now it's allowed us to be a little bit more creative, take some time to really build some stuff.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah, I'm sorry to
hopefully,
hear that your mom was in the hospital, but glad to
yeah,
hear that your family's, you know, keeping
yeah.
doing what you're doing.
But she's doing much better. She's doing
Good,
excellent. So hopefully she'll be out here real soon. And we'll
good.
move on from there. Keep her health good at 85. She looks great. She's doing good. But in this pandemic, nothing's more frightening
Right.
than somebody taking their loved one to a hospital and then being isolated from their family because of COVID.
Hmm.
So yeah, but yeah, she's doing good.
Good. Well, awesome. Is there anything else that we forgot to touch on, Billy? Any
Not
other?
yet, but I tell you this much, Ben. I'm hoping that me and you can get together though to do some writing, man. I wanna work on something with you, uh, just a piece, because your playing is phenomenal. But there's something about that sound I really want to do on a song. So I'll be talking to you soon. So everybody look for that. 'Cause that's gonna happen.
I would love that. I'd be thrilled to do that. Yeah,
That's gonna
appreciate
happen.
that.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Billy. It was great to chat with you and to see you again.
You too, man. It's good to see you on anytime, Ben. I'm following you, man. I'll hit you up on Facebook, of course.
Oh, likewise.
Okay.
Take care.
Love you, man. Take care of
Yep.
yourself.
You too.
Bye bye.